Hello everyone, it's Brad here with the Little Traverse Conservancy, and we're in November, finally. We're in kind of a transition zone right now for us up north, because it is definitely getting colder. We're getting some colder weather, but lots and lots of rain, lots of mud, maybe a mix of snow, but it's definitely not skiing season yet, and it makes it kind of tough to get motivated to jump up and get outside. But I've got something pretty cool for us to look for today. We've got some perfect examples up here, and it's perfect weather too. These overcast days that we're having right now when all the leaves are off the trees makes it perfect to look for these weird little green blotches that show up all over our trees. So hopefully you recognize these little green and blue blotches on the tree as a lichen. So lichens are really common, but what actually are they? Are they a plant or like a fungus? And the answer is kinda, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. These lichens are what's known as a composite organism, or some people call them a symbiotic organism. What's happening here is two different organisms are working together to make pretty much one species. It's almost always a combination of a fungus and an algae, although occasionally it can be a cyanobacteria inside there, but up here they're algae. And we classify them as one single species because they're so closely associated. The simplest way that I really like to think about these things is basically there's algae in there, and the algae has chlorophyll. So the algae can make its own food, but it doesn't have a whole lot of structure. It couldn't just grab onto a tree like this. That's where the fungus comes in. So the fungus cannot make its own food, but it can make these nice little structures. So they team up together, the algae provides the food, the fungus provides the structure and clings to the trees. That makes it really, really interesting, and they've created, some really incredible adaptations so that some are hanging out on the bark, some will be way up there, up in the branches, and some is only going to be on rocks. So let's take a look at some more places where we can see these things. So now that we understand how kind of unique lichens are, I'm sure you want to go out and look for some. So where are some good spots to go see lichens? Well, the really good news is there's no such thing as a bad spot. Lichens are pretty much ubiquitous. They're going to be all over the place, but they do have some certain preferences. You're going to tend to find more lichens in very sunny areas. Places where, right here, I'm on the very edge of a woods. There are quite a few less lichens way deep in the shady woods, although there are some that'll pop up there. There are also some that prefer the trunk of a tree, and others that prefer the very tippy tops of the branches. There are even certain lichens that prefer rocks. And there's this really cool type of habitat that I like looking around in. It's kind of this big open area with a lot of granite and marble and slate, stones placed all over this nice beautiful lawn. We call those types of habitats cemeteries, and while they are very good places to look for lichens, we're not going to visit one today. But the more I'm thinking about lichen habitat, or where I would go to look for lichens, the more I wish, really a perfect habitat would be like a really large, open public nature preserve, right? And it would be actually really especially good if that nature preserve had, like sweeping views of Little Traverse Bay and Lake Michigan, but gosh, I just don't know where we would find a place like that around here, right? So we're at the Offield family Viewlands, and I'm gonna cover a few of the most common species that I've been finding up here. Let's go get them. So the first one we're gonna talk about today is easily Michigan's most common species of lichen. Right here it is. It's this nice seafoam kind of blue-greenish color, and it's pretty darn big. It's pretty hard to miss. This one is the common green shield lichen, and it's extremely common. It's all over the place here. It's on multiple trees, and it can be as small as a teacup doily, or like this one, it's bigger than your hand. So the thing to look for on these is this nice leafy texture. This is known as a foliose lichen, so foliose meaning foliar, right? It's got these leafy bits, and it's pretty wrinkly too. Once you've seen it once, you'll start to recognize it pretty much all over the place, but as an added bonus, this one has a really fun scientific name to it, and with a little practice, you can memorize it and then look really, really smart around your friends. This one is Flavoparmelia caparata. So that kind of has a mix of Greek and Latin to it. Flavo meaning kind of like a yellow or greenish. Parmelia meaning it's about the shape of a shield. and caparata just means wrinkled. So Flavoparmelia caparata is the yellow-green shield wrinkle lichen. Pretty descriptive. That's one that I like to throw out a lot. So our most common species, really easy one to identify. Let's keep on going. Our next species is also extremely common, and I see it most of the time on these cedar fence posts, although you'll see it on shingles and pretty much any hard surface that's been hanging out a while. Hopefully you can see it's got these little bitty red tops on it. They're like matchsticks almost. And this is also a lichen. This is what's called the British soldier lichen, because apparently at some point in history the British soldiers used to have little red hats, but you can tell it's not leafy like this other lichen that's hanging out right next to it. This one's more three-dimensional. It's got these sticky uppy bits. I like to use scientific terms, but this is not a foliose lichen because it's not got these little leafy pieces. This is much more three-dimensional. So this is our second group of lichens called the fruticose lichens. They've got these little fruiting structures. Those are the red pieces up on top. So they're fruticose as opposed to these nice other foliose. And of course, again, we've got our very common green shield lichen hanging out right next to it. It's never far from any of our other lichens. So we've got our green shield lichen and our nice British soldiers. Luckily, hanging out right next to our British soldiers was another fruticose lichen, but if we look really close, you see how they're shaped like little golf tees? These ones have a pretty funny name too. These are the pixie cups, right? It makes sense. A little forest pixie could hang out in there. These are another pretty common species. We have quite a few different ones, so figuring out the species can be sometimes difficult, but luckily they're just pretty on their own. I don't always need to know exactly what species they are, as long as they're nice looking. So our little pixie cups. Right up here above the parking lot is our third and final type of lichen. It's not the last species we'll cover, but it is the third of three types. So first we had our foliose, then we had our fruticose. Now we've got these. They are crustose. And crustose just because they almost form a crust, right? They're not leafy. You can't really even tell, you know, if there's an edge to them. You couldn't slip a pocket knife or a letter opener underneath this lichen. It's just really clinging to the tree here. And what we're looking at is also a very common species. If you look really close and see the dark squigglies right there, when this species was discovered, the person who described it thought that those dark squigglies kind of looked like some type of handwriting. So this one's called the common script lichen. You almost need a microscope or a magnifying glass to look at them, but those squigglies do come out. There's a pretty good example of them. So our common script lichen, really abundant, especially on these beech trees. That's where we find it most often. We're just to the east of where Hideaway Valley Drive crosses the old cart path, and you can see in front of me just a carpet of this seafoam green and gray. And of course these are another type of lichen. They're very, very bushy in shape and form, and these are the reindeer lichens. Reindeer lichen because reindeer really love to eat them. They're a very important food source for them way up north there. These are always going to be kind of a seafoam green. There's a couple of gray ones. Very, very like spongy almost. They're kind of neat, and they'll grow in these very, very dry, nutrient poor areas where, you know, it doesn't have a whole lot of competition. There's not going to be any trees to shade them out, and they just form wonderful carpets. Before anybody gets to thinking that maybe lichens are just maybe slate gray or blue or green, let me show you a few of these. Whoa. This tree is just completely littered with sunburst lichens. These gorgeous yellow and orange colored lichens are all over the tree. They will only occur, at least in my experience, in some of the sunniest spots around. So I see them a lot of times on trees at some of the marinas around town or anywhere close to the lake shore where they just get a ton of sun exposure. And these are one of the kind of unsuspecting lichens that you might find, and they really like to show off, especially in the sunlight. And there's one more really fun surprise with even some of the lichens that aren't quite so vibrant. that I'll show you right at the end. That'll be our final thing there. Okay, so I definitely saved the best for last. I've got this branch here, and hopefully you can see that gray one right in the middle. That one's a real game changer, and it's super, super exciting. I know you're looking at it and saying, oh yeah, Brad, it's real exciting. Yeah, great stuff. But there's something really extraordinary going on with this lichen in particular, and I need to find some real deep shade to show you exactly what's going on. So stick around and let's check it out. Okay, we've got our lichen. I'm in the shadiest spot that I could find, and we're looking at this one right here, the real, really just pale gray one. What I also brought with me out here is a really powerful black light that was lent to me by a coworker. So watch that lichen. I'm gonna turn on the black light. We're gonna see what happens. Whoa. Wow. I'm so glad the camera picks that up. Okay, so does everybody see how it's pretty much the only lichen that is fluorescent under the black light? That's pretty extraordinary, and that can actually help us figure out which species it's gonna be. But this is so cool that I really wanna take this into some complete darkness and show you guys just how much they light up and how vibrant they are. Wow. Look at how that glows. Holy cow. It just really lights up under that black light. One of my favorite things about this phenomenon is that scientists are still trying to figure it out. They're not exactly sure why they will be fluorescent under certain wavelengths. There's quite a few actually on here. I'm seeing some reds down below down there. A lot of lichens that were maybe gray or blue in the sunlight are now kind of orange. There's a very strange teal color coming out of these. So that was our last thing for our lichens today, is that they're completely fluorescent under black light. I really appreciate you guys sticking around with me this whole time, looking at nitty-gritty little things, but it's just something that makes it a little more exciting in the wintertime to keep an eye out for, something that you wouldn't always think of. But wow. Okay, so I hope you learned some lichens. Get out to the Viewlands and check them out. There's a wonderful diversity up there. There's over 200 different species in the state of Michigan, so there's lots to go and find. So good luck, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.